further ado, I just wanted to welcome my guest, Sarah.
Hi. I love the way you screen shifted me in.
Yeah.
Very professional. I felt so cool. Of course. So my name is Sara Shankar. I'm a senior at NYU right now. I'm studying recorded music and business. So it's a cool intersection of two entertainment facets on the creative side and the business side. I started out as a creator first. I was writing and producing songs for artists, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's what led me to the whole music business side of things. So I had music industry business experience actually, and I worked at a record label called BMG. I worked at Apple dealing with music licensing for them. And out of all the entertainment industries, I realized that gaming actually brings in the most revenue and is really lucrative about their marketing campaigns. So I was really interested in understanding about how they were able to sell consoles and get people so captivated into entertainment technologies. So that's why I applied to intern at PlayStation this summer, and I ended up interning on their partner marketing team. And it was a wonderful, fantastic experience. And it was definitely a good blend of creativity and business, which is great for how my brain works personally. And yes, I'm excited to tell you all more about this. And do you have any specific questions related to my experience or internships?
I think a question like a lot of people right now are wondering is like how like you're naming you like interned at all these amazing places like PlayStation,
Mhm.
Apple, like BMG, Zinc, like you mentioned, like all these places. Like what got you like early on? What year were you in college when you got like your first internship?
So my first internship was after my freshman year. And I remember getting an internship is kind
So
of
this is freshman year summer, kind of.
freshman year summer. Yes. It was after my freshman year in the summer. And in general, getting an internship is pretty like daunting in general because you have to go talk, you have to interview, you have to figure out what companies would be a good fit for your experience. And especially if you're a freshman, there's not a whole lot to build on because you're still exploring things. You just started college. So, what got me into the internship space? Well, one was really being proactive and reaching out to people. I love to just talk to people on LinkedIn, and it wasn't even for purposes of getting a job or getting an internship, but just to learn. During COVID, we were all locked in and we were all on our laptops and phones 24/7. At least I can speak for myself. I was definitely on the internet way too much during COVID. And I spent that time really reaching out to people on LinkedIn that I thought had interesting job titles just to learn a little bit more about their company and what they do, what their roles were, and that has helped like build such great relationships for me and also help me understand the lay of the landscape when it comes to entertainment. So now sometimes I work with people and they'll be like, oh, I worked at this startup called STEM Disintermedia. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I talked to somebody from there my freshman year and I'm familiar with, not an expert, but I'm familiar with their work. And so that's what really led me to figure out like, these things are interesting, these areas exist, and this is what I want to explore. So whenever I applied to Zinc, like I knew I wanted to explore music licensing at the time because I knew it was a thing from all the people that I had talked to from LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So I'm a very like cold, get out there, like reach out to people. I love talking to people in general. So
yeah, I think that's super cool because a lot of people like during COVID, at least like I was one of them. I was just probably just binge watching Netflix shows and probably just like
I did that too. Don't worry.
probably just like googling all the answers for my classes. That's probably all I was doing. But that's pretty cool that you spend a lot of time, like on LinkedIn, reaching out to people. What do you think like helped you, especially like on? Do you use LinkedIn a lot? Like one of those.
I do use LinkedIn a lot. I use Instagram a lot as well. I use emails a lot as well. What I've noticed is I think Instagram is a great tool for networking and connecting with people around my age, so Gen Z people in general. Even TikTok is pretty connective for people my age. LinkedIn is for people who are a little bit older, but it's also great because they all have some such great experience in the corporate world on LinkedIn. So that's where I would reach out to someone in a more professional sense. Whereas if I just want to chat more about an artist's work who is around my age, I would reach out on Instagram. So
Oh, that's very interesting. I did
you
not.
reach out to people and how do you go about it?
Usually, dude, I just use like LinkedIn and I just like connect with them, and then I don't even like ask for a coffee chat, like which
Yeah.
is I just go like, "Hey, thanks for connecting. Do you mind if you could like refer me?" Because when I did the coffee chat thing, I saw that people don't care like first of all, like to talk to you for that long. If they think your profile is interesting, they'll connect back with you on LinkedIn. And if they do, then you can just message them like, "Hey, thanks for connecting. Um, uh, do you mind like just giving me a referral?" And if a lot of companies give like their employees like a percentage or something if that person does go through and get an offer.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's why I
interesting.
stopped with the coffee chat thing. But I still get like why people do that. Like
Yeah.
I've done that too. So
I mean, I think that, especially because at the time I think there are many ways to go about this, and
yeah.
your approach also seems super effective as well. And being really direct, I'm sure it does make an impact for sure. So I admire your approach as well. But I think for me, especially at the time when I was trying to figure out, I didn't know anything about the entertainment business in general. I didn't know anything about the music business. I grew up in this town called College Station, Texas, where there's not a whole lot of exposure to the entertainment industry, which is now like where I want to be for sure. But not knowing a lot of things, I think those coffee chats really helped me understand what music licensing was, music marketing was, what entertainment marketing is, and how tech ties into entertainment in general. So it's helped me, not explicitly in the sense where I wanted a job and I wanted an internship at a company and that's how I got it, but it also helped me understand what are the things I'm interested in as well.
Yeah, at like Apple. What do you think like how did you apply? Like what was the process to even like getting to that point? And and I know you had like previous work experience, like your LinkedIn has a lot of different work experience. So it shows like you're actually very passionate about what you're doing.
And that's a great word to use. I think companies, I can't speak for other companies in the tech world, but I can speak for Apple specifically because I've been able to see the insides of their work culture. But they pride themselves in being creative and passionate and innovative as a company. I mean, what really got me interested in Apple was watching the Think Different Apple ad campaign. So I watched this ad campaign when I was a sophomore in a marketing class in college. And this was before I applied to Apple. And this campaign, it was before the release of the MacBook. And it didn't even really have featured the technology at all, but it was just talking about a message. And it was about how Apple is for the crazy ones, the ones who think differently. And then
Yeah.
it showcased.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, I think it's a great ad. I'm a big consumer in general of ads and media and products. So yeah, if I'm referencing ads a bunch, please know that I'm just a huge media consumer in general. But I saw that campaign and I was like, wow, this is so cool, and it makes a lot of sense because I had made music on this software called Logic Pro, which is made by Apple my entire life. So, well, not my entire career of making music. And I've been using Apple products since I was a kid. It's always been like a symbol of creativity and freedom and unleashing imagination and power. So that's why I really wanted to work at Apple, because I just admired their brand image and vision so much. And I think that really does come across in interviews when you're passionate about the company and you're passionate about the brand and excited about their work. And so for Apple specifically, I think that I actually wasn't even expecting to hear back because I didn't have a referral in there and I was just applying like
You just like cold applied?
exactly. I just cold applied and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I worked at Apple? And then I applied and I'm like, well, I hope I hear back. I didn't know anyone at the time who worked at Apple.
Did you like apply really early as soon as the application opened, or was it just like
no, I applied maybe a month after the application.
advice would you have for people who want to transition into tech, like knowing you've worked at like companies like Apple, a very big tech company, and also PlayStation, more gaming and tech? So
yeah, of course. I mean, I would give this advice. I mean, there are two things. The first thing is to have like an abundance mindset when it comes to opportunities. I think that this is really hard, especially for people who care a lot about things. And of course, whenever I was interviewing for Apple, I cared a lot. Like of course, I wanted the opportunity, and I think it was a fantastic company. And even interviewing there, I was just like so thrilled to be in those interviews. But just having an abundance mindset about things, like if something doesn't work out, there are so many other opportunities in this world, and everything is a learning experience, just looking at everything through the lens of a learning experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, figuring out like where are all the opportunities. We live in a world with 8 billion people, so there's millions of opportunities out there, and really like taking the time to do your research and searching for things and figuring out like this is cool, this is cool, this is cool, being super open-minded to different opportunities that are out there. Like just having that abundance mindset is really great in a world because it keeps you optimistic. And you have to be, if you really want to make a change and get the things and get to the places you want to be, I think that you do have to be optimistic in a sense. But I don't mean blind optimism, like go into an interview and think that you're going to get the job as soon as you interview and be like, yeah, this is a done deal, I'm going to get the job every single time you interview. I don't mean be blindly optimistic, but
Yeah.
in the sense that there are so many things that will interest you out there. There's not just one thing in this world that will interest you. I can speak for myself personally. There are many things in this world that I find so compelling, amazing, engaging, interesting. And I think everyone should be open to learning about the things that could engage them and compel them and be something that they're passionate about.
No, I think that's like that you put it like really well together, because that's like probably the best mindset to have when you go about like just life in general too.
Yeah.
Be like just open to like learning new perspectives, learning new things, like not be closed minded. Like that happens to me all the time. Like I just think closed minded. Like if I
Yeah,
don't,
it's
I don't.
easy. And I speak like I'm a pro at it, but I'm still trying to practice the same thing I'm preaching here.
Yeah, it's like it's hard, but like the approach you have, the mindset to just keep learning, take everything as like, I'm just
I know,
learning,
exactly.
and stay optimistic is that's great advice.
Yeah, and I think it takes the pressure off of an interview when you think that way. You go into it thinking, I'm not scared, I'm excited for this, I'm excited to learn from this. And just looking at things through that lens really shifts your mindset, and people can smell like how you're feeling from a mile away. At least for me, I think I'm a very expressive person, but people can feel people can sense how I'm feeling. And so if I go into an interview being like super nervous, like sweating beads of sweat, I think it will come across as nervous and unsure and not confident. Whereas if I come in excited, I think people can also tell that one too. So yeah, use your nerves as excitement. Don't use your nerves as being scared.
Yeah, I think this is a good transition into, some interview tips as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
in an interview, like usually like the interviews you've been in, have they been like mostly behavioral or like a bit of technical? I know from speaking from my experience, I've had mostly, I would say, like, because I'm like business focused more, it's mostly behavioral and just like describe a time and something like that. I haven't really done like, any coding or anything, but like, what about you?
Gosh, yeah, no, exactly the same thing. Just mostly behavioral questions. Um, I mean, also figure out there's nothing wrong with preparing for an interview. Nobody said you had to go into an interview not thinking about what you want to say, what you want to convey, what you want to get across. Like no one said that you have to just do it cold turkey. And I prepare for almost everything, and I'm shameless about it. Like I love preparing for things because it helps give me direction. So I would definitely prepare in advance for an interview.
No, you're 100% right, because
Yeah.
my friends always ask me, or people always ask me, like, how do I prep for this interview? Should I take a look at these questions? Should I prep technical too? But I always tell them like, there's nothing wrong in being like over prepared. Like,
Yeah,
the best thing to do is be over prepared. So
mm-hmm.
you did it like perfectly.
No, yeah, that's perfect. And I mean, that speaks to how you've probably been an incredible interviewer. And yes, for behavioral questions, one thing about them is that they can be predictable, because if you can figure out from the job description what kind of person, and a lot of times the job description tells you what kind of person they're looking for, you can think with your own experience and be like, I worked on this project, which I would love to tell them about because that fits this job description and this skill that they're looking for. So being prepared in that sense, like really reading through the job description and like reflecting on your personal experience, is probably something that will set you apart from other candidates.
And yeah, just having a story, right? Like just having a solid story. Sometimes like I remember early on when I started giving interviews, I used to just like go on a tangent just talking about like God knows what, and the question would be something so small and like a 30-second answer. I would just be talking about 2 minutes. Like they would ask me, tell me about yourself, and I'll be talking for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So like do you want to talk a bit about, like, I'm sure when you interview with Apple, one thing that was probably very important is like being concise.
Yeah, it definitely is concise. And, communicating is something that I'm always trying to get better at. For your point about storytelling, there's this one episode where it talks about how stories are way more effective on audiences than just talking about random things. So, I mean, yeah, storytelling is like a proven way to help people remember you, help solidify your ideas in someone else's head, and, convey information, but make it in a fun way at the same time. So having a story is so important, first of all. And second of all, something that I've learned is to start with why I do what I do instead of talking about what first. Because I mean, like at the end of the day, like what matters to a company, what matters to the people you're connecting with is your why. Like they want to know why you're doing what you're doing instead of what you're doing. Because I mean, motivation is one of the most genuine, transparent things that you can get across to people. So I always start my interviews with, when they say tell me about yourself, I always start with my why and why I do what I do and my mission in general. And then I go into, I'm a business person, marketer, I've had experience at X, Y, and Z company.
Yeah.
Because I just think that it comes across as more genuine, and it comes across as more passionate in general too, and it ties my story together.
Yeah, I think that's 100% like spot on. Did you have like any mentors or any, like, anyone who was helping you along the way, who told you like which way to go, like any like yeah.
Yeah, I've had incredible mentors before, and this is something that I'm really lucky to have. I have professors at my school, which is called the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music, and some of my professors are absolute legends in the music industry. Like, for example, one of my publisher friends and mentor and professor. Her name is Lee. She's the music publishing professor and licensing professor at my school, but she was originally the VP of A&R at Warner Chappell, which is a major label publisher group. And she's one of my incredible mentors, and she's really helped me solidify my understanding of how the entertainment streaming economy works in general, and also like helped me personally grow and figure out where are areas of growth for me and where can I explore that actually has a lot of opportunity in general. So mentors are definitely really helpful, and they they have a perspective of being in the industry a lot longer than I have. So that's why I'm really grateful to have mentors that teach me what they did right, what they did wrong, and tell me like what paths have very fortunate
Yeah.
outcomes.
So just working in tech, I know when the first time I worked at Microsoft, I felt a lot of like imposter syndrome, and I've never felt that working anywhere, like, at any company ever before. So have you like ever experienced imposter syndrome, or yeah, so how did you deal with that? Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, all the time, all the time. Oh gosh, I wish I had an amazing answer to this, but this is something that I work on in myself, especially being an intern and being new to a company and still learning the ropes and how things operate at the same time, but also wanting to be valuable to the team. Like there's this sense of I've not been here that long, so obviously you know better. But I think working in tech, one of the most like important, valuable things that you have as if you are in the Gen Z generation, or if you're young in general, like one is like you're their next target consumers, if that makes sense. So Gen Z people right now are having more purchase power. They're now getting jobs and they're able to buy things. And so right now tech companies really need to be focusing on how can we market and how can we communicate and how can we target these Gen Z audiences. And as somebody who is a Gen Z person and understands how technology works, has been using technology almost their entire lives, we all have really valuable perspectives to add. Like if we see something, for example, if I saw an ad that didn't seem authentic or appealing to me and just seemed really fake, and like somebody threw a bunch of money and splashed an influencer's face on it, I'm going to be like, okay, yeah, Gen Z is not going to like this one because I know that Gen Z makes fun of things like that.
Mhm.
So having that, like understanding that you have value as somebody who is young is really important whenever it comes to like dealing with your own imposter syndrome, because yeah, just knowing that you have value to add to the team in whatever way, and your perspective is always going to be valuable. And I encourage everyone to really reflect on their own personal experiences. What makes you different than other people? What is something that you did growing up that a lot of people didn't do, that honestly could tie into anything related to technology? Like in general, if you're working at an athletic company and you used to be an athlete growing up, of course you're going to have like something to add and some personal experience perspective to add to your company. So just reflecting on your own experiences and figuring out where are areas where you have uniqueness or value is really important to combat imposter syndrome, because everybody does have value at the end of the day, and you just have to tap into it yourself.
Yeah, I remember like when I started working at Microsoft, like I had never felt like so dumb in my life. And it was so crazy because everyone around me, it just felt like they were learning things at a much faster rate than me, and it was just crazy.
Mhm.
And it was just like I was just I used to panic sometimes, like, oh my god, like things are moving so fast, like why am I not picking up on things? But it was just because I was just too nervous in my own head, like I wasn't confident in like the decisions I like. Even if you feel like you're not 100% at something, like
Mhm.
if you just go for it and just start doing it anyways, and then you make mistakes along the way, but then at least you get towards where you need to go towards. Like if you're working on a project, you can make mistakes in the beginning and then start like aligning to where you actually have to go, instead of
Yeah.
just, like, like just stalling and just like thinking like, oh, like what do I do, and just not doing any work. um
Mhm. No,
so
that's great. Like really jumping right in is also amazing advice to give to anyone starting out in tech. Like just there's this really famous pop producer named Max Martin. He's written and produced so many pop hit songs, but it reminds me of what you're saying, because he has this quote that says "Dare to suck," and like you have to be bad at something at first to get good at something,
yeah,
and nobody is a natural at everything. And
yeah,
so yeah, like you said, really jumping right in and not being afraid to make mistakes and correcting your mistakes afterwards and reflecting, okay, how can I avoid future mistakes and be better in the future? Like I think that'll build your own confidence too. And when you start doing things right, it builds your own confidence.
yeah. And something that someone at PlayStation also mentioned on the call that I joined one time, on this meeting, she mentioned like having like a list about yourself where you look back at it and you go like, damn, I've accomplished like all these things, so like why am I feeling like this right now? I
Yeah.
shouldn't feel like this right now. You can do whatever you have to do right now, don't feel this kind of way. So like to everyone, like I feel like just having a list of things that, just a personal thing, obviously don't like show people, but yeah, just like have it for yourself and just look at it and just look at all the progress you've made in the last year, in the last 6 months, and just be proud of yourself.
That's amazing advice. And yeah, like have a great personal narrative about yourself in your head. I think that can combat a lot of imposter syndrome. Like you said, it's up to you to tailor your own personal narrative and convince yourself that you are worthy of the job or you've done amazing things, which is 100% true. Like you can definitely find things to put on that list.
Yeah, having worked at such cool companies, uh, I would be very curious to know like what does your resume look like. So what are some like resume tips you have for like people working, and like what are some like important pointers to really look out for?
Hmm. Wow, this is a great question, because I also ask this question to people, and I always ask for resume feedback. So my first tip would be always ask for resume feedback. So while you're making it,
Good
make
advice.
sure you're getting as many eyes on it as possible. So that's the first thing, like being open to changing things. I know that there is limited space on a one-page resume. You can't put everything in the world, but you also can't put absolutely nothing in the world. And you can't be too braggy, but you also have to be confident and showcase your accomplishments. So it's a tightrope you're walking on when you're making a resume, for sure. So having all those perspectives is going to be helpful first. And would highlight is to be able to quantify your accomplishments. So if you're saying, I helped organize this camp, okay, well, maybe being able to quantify that a little bit more and saying, I spearheaded a camp with 300 participants. And
Yeah,
having that number in there and really being able to show that impact is really important.
yeah,
So yeah, quantifying your impact in general is always a key thing to put on your resume. And also making sure that you highlight your resume also tells a story and you're highlighting what's most important to you, and your experience somehow like is cohesive and ties together and makes sense. Even if you're switching industries, like you were a Starbucks barista and now you're working at a record label, like maybe you can talk about the communication aspect of being a Starbucks barista and how you had to problem solve with customers. And while you were at a record label, you had to problem solve and troubleshoot people's concerts. So having some sort of cohesiveness and highlighting your areas of strength and those are two really important things to do.
Do you like, what would be some piece of advice like you would give to, someone coming into college as a freshman right now watching this video, or like a sophomore or junior just applying? How should they like approach applying? Should they reach out to someone on LinkedIn first, like try to get referral? How do you go?
Well, I can only speak to my own experience. I know a lot of people who have gotten referrals into companies and worked there. But for me specifically, the biggest companies I've worked at, I've never had referrals or any point of contact into. So I think that while referrals may increase your chances and they're great, I think applying is more important, and also investing in yourself is also more important. Figuring out like what you have to say, what you want to do, what you want to explore is more important than getting a referral, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome advice. Like investing in yourself is so important, because I remember, like, do you use your school email to apply or your regular email?
I use my school email to apply just in case. I'm not sure. I'm curious to see what you do too, but just in case they need to verify that I am a student,
Yeah.
it comes across that I am a student if I'm using an nyu.edu email. I'm curious to see if you use your student email as well.
No, yeah, that's I when I first like got into Rutgers, and they use Handshake over here. Not sure what you guys use.
Mhm. Oh, we use Handshake as well.
Yeah, so they use Handshake over here, and Handshake is like a pretty big thing. But when I found out that you had to apply with the school email, I was like, I don't want my identity to be linked to my school.
Yeah.
I want to be like my own person, my own like email. So that was always like how I approached it. And like you said, like invest in yourself, like believe in yourself. So yeah.
That's true. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up as well. Like being able to stand on your own feet, and everything that you do have, whether that be your educational experience, your past internship experience, isn't who you are specifically. Like, yes, those are great assets and those are great learning experiences for you, but also being really sure about who you are, what you want to do, understanding your own values, being reflective, being self aware. I think those are great skills that go farther than any experience that you could have or any school that you go to.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on and being my first guest. I hope people, really learned from everything you spoke about and your experiences. And I hope someone can take something away from this, because that's really like the entire point and idea behind starting this, to really help other people who were in my position when I was applying. I wish these videos and I could learn from this. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And if you have any last words, yeah.
I admire that about you, and this is so commendable, which is why I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. And if anybody does want to reach out to me and on LinkedIn, I think Ibby's gonna link my LinkedIn in the description here. But feel free to reach out if you have questions, and I wish everyone the best of luck. And I'm just very excited to be here on this podcast.